Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I am crafting with the newest release from Pixi Designs, and this is just one of the really fun die sets that's released, and it's called Let's Eat Cake. And it's a cake, well, it's pretty versatile actually, but it is designed so that you can easily create shaker cards. And there's a lot of different ways that you can approach creating your shaker. I'm just going to show one way, and you can try this, see how it works for you, or try a different method, because there is this one die that will cut out the complete outline of a 3-tiered cake. And so what I've done is gone ahead and cut that out of some beautiful pattern paper, and I am going to line the back of it with some acetate. And so we're gonna get that stuck down first, and then I will layer the individual cake tiers on top of that. Now there are separate dies that will cut out your bottom, middle, and top tier cake, and those dies actually cut out frames. And so you could build your shakers individually if you wanted, but I thought I would give this a try because it just seemed more natural for me to try it this way. So what I will do is create shaker wells, and basically that's where you essentially, whatever aperture you're using, this is pretty universal to all shaker cards, is you want to enclose that aperture or that opening with foam, and that creates a well, or just, an enclosed area where you can fill in with your shaker bits. And the key is you really just want to make sure that you don't leave any gaps where your shaker fill can escape. And so you can see I'm being kind of generous. I'm going to end up lining pretty much this entire panel of pattern paper here, but if you wanted to be a little bit more sparing with your foam, you could just stick to really, the outline of your aperture, and maybe, all the way around all 4 sides of your panel. And I think at a minimum you would want at least that. I like to just be a little bit generous with this so that everything is nice and level. You don't get some areas where it's a little bit caved in. And so I just like to be generous with, especially since the foam that I'm using is actually, it's kind of old. I think it's from a craft kit that's years old at this point. So dry adhesive does potentially dry out and lose its stickiness over time, so it's better to just use it up and not hold on to it forever. Now so I'm modifying this a little bit. And you'll see me do it again in a moment, but I just cut out the top of the bottommost tier so that I can stack the middle tier right on top, and it looks a little bit more seamless. So I'll do the same here. So there's a die that cuts out some really fun, sort of like a drippy icing, and I am going to kind of just snip off the top of that cake because we have a top tier that's going on above this. And I just want to make it look a little bit more seamless, and especially since we do have the shaker opening behind it. And one thing that's kind of fun with this is you could just make one really large shaker well. And that would work really well if you wanted to just leave it the way that it was before I'm about to do what I'm doing here, which is to apply some additional foam and actually divide up this one big opening that I have and divide it into 3 individual kind of compartments where I can then fill each of them up with their own mix of shaker bits. So it's an opportunity where if you want to put different colors, you could do that. One reason, even if you did want to use all the same shaker bits, one reason to do this anyways is so that there's always some shaker fill at the top. Because otherwise, if it's just one big opening, all of the shaker fill, when you hold it up vertically, all of it's going to drop down to the bottom. And at the very top, it's going to be empty until you start to shake it up. Whereas if you do have, so here I will be filling it with 3 different colors. But even if you were using all one color, I think it's still worth it to divide up the big opening into 3 wells so that there's always some, in this case I'm using sequins as my shaker fill, there's always some shaker fill or some sequins on that topmost tier of cake. So just something to consider, but definitely you could choose to do it however you like. And I am adding, so the sequins from Spellbinders is already pretty cool. It has a little bit of an iridescent shine to it already, but I've got some of this additional confetti that I think is also from Spellbinders, but technically Fun Stamper's Journey. And it's even more iridescent. So it just adds not too much of its own color, because it's actually kind of a clear iridescent, so it just has that very rainbow shine to it. And then the sequins do have there are 3 different colors, and I think all 3 of these are sequins that I got from the I think it's from the Spellbinders advent calendar, so kind of fun. The paper I'm using is from the Not Too Shabby shop, in case you're curious. But the dies, again, really, really fun, because you also get a complete set of numbers. And these are pretty cool. I don't actually use them. I modified them as well. But one thing that I thought was really neat about these particular numbers is that they are basically numbered candles. And so each of the numbers does have a candle on top of it, which I thought was pretty cool. So I'm backing my shaker here with some iridescent mirror card, which I think just makes the whole thing just very glitzy. This is a very shiny shaker card. But now that basically the whole thing is enclosed, and this is how I prefer to make my shakers, where I close off the back, and you saw I did close it off with a second piece of acetate, and initially that was all I was going to use, but then I thought maybe some of this iridescent card stock would look good behind here as well, and so that's why I added that. But I do like to close off the back of my shaker, and then I have a completely independent panel, and I find that a lot easier to line up onto my card base than as opposed to putting my shaker bits onto my card base and trying to line the panel up on top of that. I have just never really been successful with that method. So, but if you're good at it, then I think, stick with what works for you. This is what works for me. It is a little bit of extra acetate, but I feel like, for me, it's easier, so it's worth it. And now I can nest my cake tiers right, or the frames, I should say, right into that opening. And I'm adhering it right on top of that first layer of acetate. So really, really fun. Every tier of cake, there's actually 2 different icing dyes. Actually, except for the top one. The top one doesn't have 2. I think the topmost one only has 1. But I love that they've thought about this, because one of the dyes that will cut out icing for you is designed so that you can do what I've done here, where you stack and you have a multi-tiered cake. The second dye that represents icing is more solid. So if you wanted to just make a 1-tier cake, you could do that and have icing that is solid across the top. So I really, really love that they thought about that, because then you can actually use these cake tiers individually. So you don't actually have to always make the 3-tier cake. You could make just the small one, just the medium one, or just the large one by itself. And the cool thing about the more solid icing piece is that it also is well designed to where it does have a slit that the die cuts into it, so that you could, if you wanted, you could actually stick these candles into, as if it's actually stuck into the cake. So I think that's another cool little detail as well. One of the reasons why it's really wonderful to have numbers like this is that, and to make your own cards in general, is that you can really personalize it, because you're not going to find a happy 59th birthday card in your card shop or wherever you buy cards. But when you have a full set of numbers, you can individualize and celebrate every single birthday as if it's a milestone, and it's not just the big milestones that have the number on them. So I think that's why it's really fun to kind of make your own cards. And with sets like these, it makes it really, really easy to celebrate every birthday. Thanks so much for joining me today. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.